Hey guys, I'm Jason Mullins. I am originally from Cumberland, Kentucky, right there down in Harlan County, and I am the Associate Vice President of Operations at Isaiah House Treatment Centers. Growing up, my life was pretty much like I would imagine anyone else's life is. Growing up as a teenager, I was involved in sports. I excelled in sports. I made good grades. I had a lot of potential, growing up. A lot of things were expected of me because I was doing well and excelling in so many areas. Sports and school, they kind of come easy to me. I worked hard, especially at sports. I was that guy that was, if you went by the weight room in the summer, there's a good chance you're going to see me there, or up at the football field. I was very driven and committed to that, and with that, I always made good grades. And coming out of high school, I had a lot of opportunities, for higher education. I had a congressional appointment to West Point Military Academy, so there were high hopes, and I had a good family. There was nothing crazier out of the ordinary going on, in our home. So really, from an environmental factor, there's no reason necessarily for what ended up happening in my life. So basically, I remember when I was in college, I was in my second year of college, and leading up to this time, I fooled around with alcohol, just like a lot of teenagers, at that time, but nothing ever controlled me. Like I was able to do what I needed to do, and when I could, I could, when I couldn't, I couldn't. But when I was in college, I can remember coming home for the summer. I come home in the summers, between semesters, between college years. The guys that were still living back home, maybe a year behind me in school, I started noticing, hearing about these pills, and I was like, what in the world is going on? I didn't understand it, because it was like, oh, it's just medicine. So it's medicine. Why is everybody getting so crazy about it? You know what I mean? Like I didn't get it. And that's really the summer that I was introduced to it. It seemed like overnight, a lot of people who had the same promising futures that I did were all of a sudden trapped in this constant cycle of getting high, trying to find more, getting high, trying to find more. And it happened so quick. Now that summer it didn't take hold of me, but when I went back to school, I got hurt. I played college football, so I got hurt and had to have surgery. And after that surgery they gave me Vicodin. I started out taking the Vicodin like I was supposed to. I started noticing how it made me feel. Someone introduced me to other methods of using that Vicodin rather than just taking it orally. And in a very, very, very short time, that led to Oxycontin. And all of this occurred, all of this was going on. I was getting in on all of this right at the very beginning of this opioid epidemic that really started with the Oxycontin. So I've seen firsthand how it can take anyone, no matter how they were raised, no matter where they're from, no matter what their life was like, and what it can do to them. It destroys futures. It destroys high hopes for people's lives. It changes them into something that they were not. In one word, hell on earth. And saying I'm not the one that accepted that life and just ran with it. And from the very beginning, when I recognized that it had control of me, and I'm talking at like 20, 21 years old, I started fighting it. I started struggling with it. I started trying to overcome it. I was constantly trying to quit. That went on for 16 years, 11 times in treatment that I had to go to before I finally got to stay clean. Throughout that time I had a kid, and I thank God for that kid today. She's 16 today, and she was that thing that no matter how bad things got, I knew I couldn't give up. I knew I couldn't quit. All the times that I wanted to quit, at the end of the day, she was the reason that I wouldn't, because I would get suicidal. I would lose complete and total hope that it would ever get better, that my life could ever be normal or be what it was, or be what I'd always thought that it could. I was always living in regret, and so I would get pretty down and want to give up, and she was that thing that kept me going, so many times. And I went on into jobs. I lost so many good jobs. I'd get good jobs, and I would get fired, but I'd end up quitting, go, and then I couldn't go no more. After several times in treatment, my dad had finally come to me, and he had some brochures in his hand. Because at this point, all of the treatment I had ever done was a week, 2 weeks detox, 28 days, short-term treatment. So he come to me wanting me to go to treatment for a year, and I was not happy about it. I felt like he lost his mind. But I finally made the decision, and I went through the brochures. I basically got to a point where the pain of remaining the same was greater than the pain of change. That pain that I was in, I'd got to a point where I was willing to do anything to change that, no matter how hard that would have been. I was ready to suffer that pain to get out of the pain I was in, because nothing could be worse than that. That's the way that I felt about it. That's where I got to with it. So I made the choice to go to Isaiah House. And I tell you, it ain't a fairy tale from there. It wasn't a happily ever after type of situation. I ended up having to go through Isaiah House 3 times. But the thing about it was they let me, they brought me back in. They loved me. They didn't judge me. They didn't condemn me, And so I'm not the type that you threaten in sobriety, or you threaten into living a certain type of life. I'm the type that you gotta love into it. You know what I'm saying? And that's what they did. Tough love, a lot of tough love. But that's what they did. Between one of those times, I lost a wife to an overdose. She died in my arms. We had a child that I don't have in my life today as a result. That's the thing about recovery, is I've gotten so much, but there's some things that they're there for good. There's some consequences that we just have to learn to live with. One of my heroes is a guy named Bill W. And Bill said that when all else failed, intensive work with another alcoholic or addict always saved the day. And that is what I have dedicated my life to, is to helping that next person, who struggles with. But here's the thing, I won't do that without a conscious contact with God. Without God, I don't have it in my heart to want to help someone else. I have to have Him as that anchor, that guide, that leads me to be that hope, that leads me to be that light in the darkness for those that are still struggling. I would say that no matter how dark things may seem, no matter how bad things may seem, no matter how hopeless that things may seem, that there is real hope out there. There is real hope. There is a chance. As long as there's breath in my lungs, there is a chance. There is hope for something better. And I'm going to tell you what, if I can get clean, absolutely anybody can get clean. If anybody can get clean and maintain being clean, if I can do it, then they can do it. One thing that I want to say to the community of Harlan County too is that prior to high school, I moved around a lot. No place was ever home. I moved to Harlan, and I lived there for 12 years. And since that day, I've been gone for 20 years, but that place is still home. The people there will always be my family. I will always care about that community. I keep up with that community and what's going on there. It's constantly in my prayers. There is so much potential in your county. Let us help lead that potential through God and real hope. I don't care whatever a person's been through. I don't care what their life's been like, what their parents were like, what the environment they grew up. Any of that, none of that matters. Because at the end of the day, if we make the choice to do something different, and that's the thing, it's got to be something different. Because if I do what I always did, I get what I always got. If I want something I've never had, I've got to do something that I've never done. And that's what changed for me, was that I finally started doing the things that I didn't want to do. It's easy to do the things that I want to do, but real change happens when I do the things that I don't want to do. Going to treatment for a year, I didn't want to do that. When I came willing to do that, things started changing. So no matter what you've been through, no matter what you're going through, no matter what your loved ones are going through, there is a light in the darkness. There is a God out there that loves you and loves your loved ones. And here at Isaiah House, we want to do anything we can to help. Real hope for addiction.